Welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I'm Jess, sales coach and leadership expert, and I am really excited to dig down into today's episode. Okay guys, I'm really excited about this episode today. I have an amazing guest who actually approached me, and I love this because we get a lot of people who approach us and sometimes their ideas for episodes are a little bit out there. Like we've had some really interesting episode ideas over the years, but our guest today approached me with a great idea for an episode that I'm really interested to dig into, all about how to leverage your network and use joint ventures to expand your business. So welcome Abdo to the show, Abdo Riani.
Jessica, thank you very much for having me. Really looking forward to our conversation today.
I'm really excited. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that maybe a year and a half ago, I recorded an episode, and my buddies will know, saying, I just don't want to be in summits anymore. Like, please don't ask me to be involved in summits or giveaways because that space has got a little bit gross. So I'm really excited to what we're going to learn today, but tell us what you spend your days doing. How did this all come about?
Absolutely. So Jessica, I spend my day connecting rising entrepreneurs with successful founders through daily live Q&A sessions. I'm the founder of startupcircle.co, where we provide entrepreneurs with personalized advice. Up to 3 entrepreneurs in every session, so that those who join can not only ask questions, but ask follow-up questions, can connect with the speakers, and can get remembered. And I have an interesting story why I created Startup Circle, if you'd like me to elaborate, but that is what I spend my day doing today. Yeah.
So that sounds awesome. Tell us the story, because this is intriguing, because in a world where, in online business, everyone likes to keep their circle tight. Like nobody wants to give recommendations anymore. People are very cagey about their network. So how did you bring this about?
Absolutely. So Jessica, I started my first venture back when I was a sophomore in college. And back then, still today, I had a lot of passion for the environment. I wanted to contribute to the environment. So I created a platform that rewarded users for their eco-friendly actions. And the idea is simple, essentially. You recycle X amount of metal or any other recyclables. You get points. You can use those points to get rewards from local businesses. And at that time, I could barely fund life. Didn't have funding to build a platform. Could not create a technology that allowed me to scale, that allowed me to connect users with the nearest recycling facility, that allowed me to keep track of their points, scan their barcodes, get rewards, and so on and so forth. And then I remember 11 months into fundraising and, unsuccessfully fundraising, I had a conversation with a few entrepreneurs who had gone through similar stages and told me, you're doing it wrong. This is not how you're supposed to do it. This is how you're supposed to do it. Instead of going to market by focusing on creating the product first, you should be the product. You should be the one connecting people at the nearest recycling facility. You should use your cell phone. You should use Excel sheets. You should use simple landing pages, and you can, get a free template from, online marketplaces. And after those conversations, just 3-4 months later, I had 500 active users. I generated or raised, I guess, from my customers about $20,000. And, I had built a brand without a product. And then a couple of years later, I realized that I successfully built a startup and helped many other entrepreneurs build startups. After that startup, by the way, I created a studio that helped entrepreneurs launch technology startups, thanks to a conversation. It was a casual conversation with an entrepreneur and entrepreneurs I had met in local events and online. And that's when I wanted to create Startup Circle, a platform that can provide aspiring, starting, and even successful entrepreneurs with personalized advice so that they can move their businesses forward. That's what I spend most of my day doing.
That's awesome. And I love this theme that you have around connection, because that is something that I think is spouted a lot in the online world. We talk about connection, we talk about authenticity, we talk about relationships, but we don't actually practice it. We don't actively build relationships that easily. And actually, it's quite hard to do as an entrepreneur because you're so isolated. It's hard to find other people. that can give you advice. It's hard to find the right people to take advice from. So that's a really valuable service.
Look, Jessica, about relationship building, I sent an email to my list yesterday and I told them that my business boomed last year, not because I became a guru all of a sudden, a business guru all of a sudden, but it was simply because of the relationships that I built and that I, did actively and continuously. So in the beginning of 2018, Jessica, I decided that I wanted to offer different products and services. I wanted to offer coaching services, consulting services. I wanted to sell digital products, but I didn't have an audience. And that's when I thought, let me have this hypothesis. What if I, instead of fighting for influencers' audience, why can't I leverage their audience? How can I do that? Well, I can highlight their expertise through interviews and in other ways. And as a result of that, they can help me promote the content that I created with their audience and get access to their audience. So I created the Bootstrapping Summit. We talked about summits. You mentioned summits earlier, and I'll address your comment in a little bit. So the summit allowed me to document the journey of 100 self-funded entrepreneurs. And thanks to that, thanks to the promotion of the members, I got access to about 6,000 people and built trust with this new audience, and then sold my coaching services, the way I hoped to sell this year. But here's the thing, Jessica, after the Bootstrapping Summit, I realized that it doesn't have to be a summit. There are many ways that you can collaborate with your peers or with people who have what you want to have and they have what you want to have in many different other ways. So I can give you a couple examples. One of the things I did recently is I approached local chambers of commerce, and I told them that I know that one of your goals is to educate the local community of entrepreneurs. And I know also that the budget is sometimes tight. You want to bring a lot of experts, but it's can't afford to bring a lot of experts. I can take care of that, I told them. I can invite an expert through all the connections that I built over, the years, through a live Zoom call so that they can present something, interact with the audience, answer their questions. And all I need from you is distribution. I just need you to promote it. I just need you to help me get people to know about Startup Circle and know about me as a mentor, guide, or a coach. That is a way to, leverage joint partnerships without creating summits. Another way, next week I'm launching Master Week. And Master Week is, I guess a variation of an online summit. It's live sessions, live daily sessions, 2-hour long, where entrepreneurs can ask questions, get personalized answers, and help their businesses move forward. And for that, all I needed was 5 friends, 5 experts in their spaces to come and attend a session at a certain time so that they can discuss, a topic and help people get their questions answered. Another type of joint venture, Jessica, that probably takes a week. One of the things I did was that I wrote a long guide about a certain topic and invited 2 speakers to supplement the content that I wrote about that topic. And then after the session was over, and after I wrote the guide, I told them, do you want to collaborate in promoting this guide? You promote it to your audience, your Facebook group, or to your social media in general, or to your email subscribers. And I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm going to spend X amount in promoting this in social media. And that turned into a win-win. So, here are some examples, Jessica, for those who are a little skeptical about summits. There are other ways that you can, leverage joint partnerships to boost business performance.
So I really like this. And I think summits, I really don't like summits. My poddies will tell you, I don't participate in them. I think that what they have become is a massive list builder. And that's the thing that frustrates me as somebody who takes part and has an audience that is loyal and is engaged. The thing that really frustrates me is when somebody says, Jess, can you be part of my summit? And it's really badly organized. And then they get a bunch of people who don't promote it. And then they get a bunch of half-assed interviews that aren't relevant, and my audience learns nothing. And so that's why I kind of came away from them. But joint ventures, I really agree with. And I think that you can have, like saying, absolutely successful joint ventures. And one of the things that we do on this podcast is we bring experts like you on and we say, hey, come and talk about it. Teach us, teach the poddies something that is going to be useful and valuable and actionable. And the only difference in that respect is that we don't gate the podcast content. But obviously, if they then go across to somebody's website, or if they then sign up to a list or something like that, successful for both people, and both people are getting interested leads. I guess the question for me and for a lot of people who'll be listening is that the online space has changed over the last few years. And so what will happen is often people will approach you and say, I would love you to be part of my summit. And so someone gets really excited. They go, yeah, I'd love to, want to be in front of people, want to help people, train people, etc. And then they say, but you have to have a list of 5,000, right? So it goes from, we're inviting you to be part of this experience, whether it's a summit or a giveaway or whatever it happens to be, to you must have a certain list size. And that's, I think, where people are getting a little bit frustrated with it. So in your opinion, how can a joint venture work for somebody who perhaps doesn't have the biggest list in the world, but feels like they could bring a lot of other things to the table, a lot of other qualities to the table?
Jessica, as I mentioned earlier, there are many channels by which you can execute on a joint venture, not necessarily a summit. So, one of the things I do, for instance, and I'm going to give you another example of how I, leveraged how I executed on a joint partnership with one of the entrepreneurs without creating a summit, was that I learned from some of my coaching clients that many LMS platforms, for example, have a very big percentage of their paying users inactive. They are just paying for it, but they're not using the software. So I approached one of the founders, Chris Badgett, the founder of Lifter LMS, and I told him, well, one of the things we can do to help this small percentage of users to actually execute on their ideas and leverage their skills to create courses that convert is create a training, a week-long training that can help them, learn about what they need to do to actually execute on that and make it happen. So that did not require any list sharing or, lists at all. It just entailed helping a group accomplish a goal. It's not a summit, it's one type of a joint partnership.
So what you're saying effectively, to kind of summarize that for everybody, is that if you can bring other value to the table, you can find a better joint venture opportunity that suits you and your numbers. What you're saying there is not every joint venture partnership is about going out and doing loads of promotion.
Exactly, Jessica. So my goal, for example, from working with Chris is to build awareness for what I'm doing, for my personal brand. It isn't list building. I'm not looking to, grow a list thanks to my, involvement with Chris. All I was trying to do is to help him accomplish a goal. And at the same time, indirectly, I'm going to be more known to more people. And I was going to follow up before you actually concluded, which is exactly, what I was going to say. It all starts by learning about your ideal partner, putting a list of the people that you think you can help and can work with, and then learning about their needs, their priorities, their constraints, and their challenges, and then evaluating how you can create something, help them with something, at the same time, help yourself accomplish a goal without being, overly promotional or focusing exclusively on the value that you're going to get out of it. This is how I approach every pitch. But the way I approach every pitch, Jessica, is actually not that way. I start by connecting with them. And I found, and I think you're going to agree with me on this one, that the best way to connect with people is by interviewing them, bringing them to a quick conversation, having, a call with them. Most people will not mind being interviewed. I always say that experts like to be experts, and the least you can do is highlight their expertise, and interviews is a great way to do that. And you get an opportunity to build a relationship with them. Once you get to that point, then you can start your research and start brainstorming how you can create something that can be of value to both. Chris, for example, was upfront, and he told me that he didn't have time, to do 80% of the tasks that I shared with him. And I told him, well, that's what I'm there for. All I need from you is ABC. That's it. Focus on that. It won't take you more than 5 hours over the next month and a half, and I'm going to take care of the rest. And that was only due to a conversation, too, that I had with Chris after I had interviewed him once and twice, and we built that relationship, and now it's turning into a partnership.
And so, when I think sometimes when people look at joint partnerships or joint ventures, they say, but people are so much more experienced than me. You know, we've had it. Sometimes we've had a few really big guests on the podcast and it's been great. But the big question that comes up a lot is, well, how did you get those people there? And I always answer, well, they're humans. They put their trousers on the same way. They eat the same way. Like, it's all good. But sometimes people don't want to ask. Like, they don't want to ask the initial interview, or they're concerned about broaching the topic of a joint partnership because it is a little bit scary. It's a little bit nerve-wracking to say to somebody, hey, here's something I could help you improve, or here's something, you know, that I could add value to you, for fear that that person might take it the wrong way. So how would you say to somebody who perhaps is a little bit nervous about approaching somebody they really admire in the industry, wanting to come from a perspective of helping them, how should they go about approaching them? What kind of phrases should they use so that people don't get offended by the fact they're trying to genuinely help?
Absolutely, Jessica. So first and foremost, I focus on sharing as much value as possible and actually starting with being noticed. Okay. So I like to, comment on their posts. I like to tweet their, stuff. I like to share their content. Actually, one of the best strategy I found is purchasing one of their products. 99% of the time, they're going to listen to you if you invest in one of their products, but you don't necessarily have to. So after you get noticed, spend about a couple of days a week of sharing their content, commenting, and so on and so forth. Interviewing them is the best way to go. You want to have that one-on-one conversation. And no matter how, small or big your podcast, or actually, the first time I interviewed people, I didn't have a podcast. I didn't have Startup Circle. I was just pitching them the guide approach I mentioned to you before, that I was writing a guide about X, Y, and Z, and that I think that add a lot of value to the guide. And once I had that conversation with them, Jessica, I removed a lot of the friction out of the asking process. But you mentioned, what are some words? So one of the things I say when I email an expert is, I greet them by name. So hello, Jessica. I've learned a lot from your content over the years. I respect your work a great deal. My name is Abdo Riani. I'm the founder of StartupCircle.co. And the reason for my email today is to seek your interest in an interview to talk about topic ABC that will be featured in somewhere and will be distributed across X, Y, and Z. Please let me know if you're interested in this interview. I look forward to hearing from you. And then, Abdo. So, it's short, it's personalized, and it, is created to share value with them after you've been noticed through other channels. Once I have that conversation with them and I hear about their goals and needs and objectives and challenges, I wait a little bit and then make sure that it's the right timing. And then I email them, and, you should never be afraid to propose something. At least you have a chance. But Jessica, one of the things I prioritize when it comes to joint partnerships is contacting people that I feel are the most viable partner at that point in time. People that are like me, maybe a bit ahead of me, not too much, and that I know that with this partnership, we both can get significant results, not just, minor results. Beginning with that group, and by launching something together, I use that as perhaps a case study or an example as to how, together with someone who's a lot more famous, we can launch something and help the both of us. So this is how I've been doing or approaching joint partnerships from, interest to execution. It takes a little bit of time. Most people want to skip that middle stage, which is the relationship building stage, but it's actually what will make it happen. It's really the variable that will make it happen. People receive many emails on a daily basis, many proposals. If you don't build trust with them, if you don't connect with them first, they're very likely not to want to work with you on anything.
I agree. I think, from an integrity perspective, what I like about your approach, and, one of the things that helped when you approached us about being on the podcast, for example, was that you'd listen to other episodes. And it's a really basic thing, but, one of the things that really frustrates me is when people pitch anything to us and they go, we'd love you to do this for us, but have no idea how we work or how the show works or anything. And so it becomes obvious from that point who is in it to actually be a beneficial partner and who is in it for something for them, and obviously when you work hard, because I always find there's a dynamic with joint partnerships, right? You're always going to get one person who perhaps has a bigger audience and one person who wants to build some kind of audience, or, you know, there's always an expectation that you're going to launch something together, and one partner is probably not going to get the raw end of the deal, but they'll have already done the base work. You know, they'll might have built the audience, they might already have the revenue stream or whatever that looks like. So of course, one partner is always going to get further ahead using the techniques. But the great thing about what you're teaching is that obviously you're coming from an integrity first perspective of help the other person. So if they have the bigger list, you do the majority of the work.
That's exactly what I was gonna, how I was gonna answer, Jessica. I was gonna say, in addition to proposing something that can be of value to, both parties, you have to also make sure that you can add value in terms of the investment required to make this happen. So for me, I've always proposed that I will invest the time. Okay. I'm going to be the one, doing X, Y, and Z. I'm going to be the one taking care of the technical side, taking care of the reach out side, taking care of the promotion side. And all I need from you is, ABC, something that doesn't take them a lot of time and money, if any at all, and that would deliver value to them just by being part of it.
So I like that. And I think that's one of the key things about joint ventures is that you have to be prepared. If you are the person who perhaps is looking for something out of the partnership in the first place, you have to be prepared to step up and almost like give something else. It has to be time, or it has to be energy, or you might be the person that puts in the tech work, or, those kinds of things, because that ultimately is going to help in somebody looking at your application perhaps, or wanting to do a joint venture and saying, yeah, actually, let's give this person a try. They seem really enthusiastic, really positive. They've got a lot to bring to the table, and great, they're going to take some of the legwork off of my plate.
You always have to think about the things that will remove most of the friction out of the partnership confirmation process. So whatever you need to do to simplify everything for them, do that. All right. There's no right answer. There's just research involved, and you can't just guess what they want and what challenges they have by just reading their articles or browsing their Twitter feeds. You have to have that conversation with them. A partnership is one of those things where, you can't just confirm, hey, I'll see you at the end of the partnership. It's, continuous communication. There will be some challenges that you both have to overcome. And the best way to make sure that this is going to end well is to have that conversation with them, in the beginning. And I always say the best way to do it is the best way to start it is by having, by interviewing them. That's how I've done all of them.
Build the relationship and go from there. I like it. Okay. So I guess final question from me is, we're all about transparency on the podcast. So I guess my final question is, how transparent should you be when you are looking to partner with somebody? At what point do you make it obvious? Hey, look, I know we've talked about interviewing them first and things like that, but when for you does that conversation take place? Because joint partnerships can get messy if you don't have a system or a particular structure for making sure that everybody has a designated role, right?
Well, that has to be done day one. So the first time you discuss the potential of working together on a certain project, you have to discuss at least you have to have a conversation around the responsibilities of each person. Now, once that's confirmed, then you can get into the details and list all the tasks that every person is responsible for. But if you're not transparent, day one, it won't work. You also have to be transparent about the expected outcome of this joint partnership and list the best and the worst case scenarios, and need to make sure that the worst case scenario is still a good scenario. And one of the things, that you can get out of those partnerships is the relationships that you build with other people, the exposure. Maybe you won't be selling more or selling as much as you want to do, but at least you're going to have another point of contact with people that might one day purchase from you. So there are going to be benefits, but you have to make sure that both parties know that it could be, in the bottom, or it could be a success story. And that is a conversation you should definitely have since day one.
I really like that. Thank you so much. It's actually very refreshing to have somebody come on and talk about the integrity and transparency behind joint partnerships and who is doing it properly. So if people do want to go and learn about how they can set up amazing joint partnerships or joint ventures, even the odd summit if you really have to, where can they find you?
AbdoRiani.com is where they can find all the information they need about me personally, and where they can book a best time or day of that best fits their need for a quick conversation. And worst case, we'll learn something from each other. And I can propose a few ideas on how you can leverage joint partnerships to grow your business. If you would like to join Startup Circle sessions, learn from successful founders, then it's startupcircle.co is where you go. It's free to join, and I look forward to seeing you there as well.
Amazing. So if you are somebody who's looking to leverage those joint partnerships that Abdo is talking about, make sure you head over to his website. That's abdoriani.com. The link for that is in the show notes. And again, if you want to take part in some of these Startup Circle conversations, head over to startupcircle.co, and that will also be in the show notes for you. Thank you so much for today. Honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure. And if you guys have enjoyed the episode, please make sure that you find us on social media, because, you know, we love that, and tell us what your key takeaways were from this episode. I will see you on Monday. Have an awesome weekend.